Hey Strength Faction, this is Coach Mike, and I'm going to insert just the tip right into your snatch. So the first thing I always talk about with my clients when we introduce the snatch is that it's not necessary. There's nothing that says you have to do a kettlebell snatch to be successful or become conditioned or become strong in the upper body, or even to develop power. There are easier ways to do it. So the only time that you really have to do a kettlebell snatch is if you're prepping for a kettlebell certification, or if you're just really that interested in becoming good at all the kettlebell movements. So with that in mind, let's move forward. I do have a couple of pre-qualifications that I make all my clients meet before they move on to a kettlebell snatch. The first one is we must have sound shoulder mobility. So we want a 2 or 3 on the FMS screening, or they must pass whatever assessment that you're using. Secondly, we must be stable in that overhead position, right? So one thing I'm going to look at, and this will be one of the last movements that I teach clients, so they'll already have the press and the get up in their command. I'm going to make sure that they are very solid and stable in that overhead position before we move on to a snatch. So if they can't hold the bell overhead and relax and use that as a resting position, if they're shaking, if they can't achieve that overhead position, we're not even going to consider this as a movement to learn and move into. Secondly, provided we clear all these pre-qualifications. Secondly, I'm going to make sure that they have a command of one-arm heavy swings, okay? So usually you might see people, when you teach them single-arm heavy swings, you might see them revert back to a squat position, right? So instead of coming here and hitting that hip hinge, having the bell shoot through the triangle that we talked about in our swing tutorial, you'll see them come to here and to here, right? So we're not getting contact with our forearm in the hinge position. I want to make sure that they're able to swing full on swing. So bottom position is right here. We're deeply hinged. We're reaching back through. Forearm connects with the groin to transfer that power from the hips to the bell. And at the top, that we are making parallel, right? So we're able to produce enough force with our hip to get that bell parallel. Mind you, that doesn't mean that they're one arm front raising that kettlebell. I want to see, honest to God, power coming from the hips, and we're able to produce enough snap, and our timing is good enough to get that bell parallel to the floor. So a good command of one-arm swings is absolutely necessary in my book before we move on to kettlebell snatches. So we get through our pre-qualifications. We want to start teaching the snatch. We want to start working on our snatch. Let's start at the top, all right? So let's start at the finished position, which is going to look like what? It's going to look exactly like the end of a press, the middle of a press, or the middle of a get-up, right? So we're in that overhead position. Our shoulder is packed. We're not shrugged, right? There's not contact between the shoulder and the neck. Bicep is towards the ear, but not touching the ear. So you should be able to, if someone's in this position, you should be able to take your hand and just kind of rest it here, and there should be enough space for your hand to get in there. All right? So we're going to start up at that top position, and from here, I'm going to lead the bell down. I'm going to pull the bell down, right? So think about how when we squat, we want to teach people to pull themselves down into the squat. When we teach people how to bench press, we have them pull the bar to their chest. Same thing in the snatch. We do not want the bell to be out of control and falling. We are pulling the bell actively, and we're gonna throw it right through the triangle to point C. Okay? So what I teach is I teach people to lead with their elbow, right? So they're gonna find that path of the snatch, of the eccentric portion of the snatch, that's gonna come down kind of where their shoulder mobility, where their shoulder groove wants them to come down. So I'm going to have them start here. I'm going to have them lead with the elbow, pull the bell down. As soon as we start coming down, we're going to hinge and throw the bell back through point to point C. So we're through the triangle that's made up of the knees and the belt buckle, right? We want to throw the bell through there and into that, what should look exactly like the bottom of the one-arm swing. And from there, perform a one-arm swing. Catch, clean the bell up, press the bell up, right? So starting out, we're just practicing that eccentric portion of the swing, getting to a position, making sure that at the end of that eccentric portion of the swing, we end up in the right spot to produce enough power to get the bell back up to that snatch position. So, starting out, first project, start here, initiate the pull, throw the bell through point C, right? We're nice and flat here, deep hinge, contact with the forearm to the groin, and we're going to perform one swing. Catch, clean, press, repeat, okay? So, for this week, right, this is going to be an ongoing series. Next week, I'm going to re-enter your snatch with my tip, and we are going to talk about how to progress from here. But what I want you to do for this week is, A, make sure our shoulder stability is on point, make sure our shoulder mobility is on point. Do we have a command of the press and the get-up? If you don't, work on that, all right? Do we have command of the heavy one-arm swing? And by heavy, I mean, for gentlemen, let's look at swinging a 32K single arm, be in command of the bell. Ladies, let's look at least 20 or 24K single arm swings. We don't need to do a ton of reps. If you can give me 5 solid reps with a heavy one-arm swing, 3 to 5 reps, and you feel comfortable, you don't feel like you're losing your grip, you're able to get that parallel arm, and you're deep in the hinge and not squatting, I'll take it. Let's start at the top. Once we have a command of that, let's do a drill where we're starting at the top. Now we're going to regress back to a lighter bell. Ladies, perhaps a 10K or a 12K. Gentlemen, perhaps a 16K or a 20K, something that you have full command of and feel comfortable with. Let's initiate the movement from the top, right? So we're at the top of our press or our get-up. We're going to pull the bell, right? We're not going to let the bell fall. We're going to pull the bell through, throw to point C, pop out a nice powerful swing, catch the bell, clean the bell, repress the bell. Do sets of 5 of that on each side. And once you have that down, don't try and go to full snatches yet. Let's work on these elements. I promise you that by the time we get to the end of next week's practices, I promise you that your snatch is going to be on point. So let's work on these points. Get your questions to me in the comments section, and I will see you next week.